Greetings from BRICS Plus Analytics. This time our focus is the online extraordinary BRICS Summit convened by President Lula in order to discuss BRICS response with regard to the U.S. Tariffs and the U.S. Trade pressure vis-a-vis BRICS economies. And as we expected, no reprisals, no tit-for-tat response coming from BRICS. It was all very constructive and focused on the discussion of how to boost trade amongst BRICS economies as a way to overcome, as a way to compensate for the negative effects of these external shocks in the form of rampant protectionism. So what were the key messages? I think some of the very important messages came from China, from China's leader, Xi Jinping in particular. His messages and proposals with regard to the World Trading System and the importance of the World Trade Organization, the WTO, as the core of the World Trading System. That I think is very important and suggestive of the BRICS economies working increasingly closely together within the WTO, possibly forming a unified bloc in order to push through some of the critical initiatives in reforming the World Trading System, but also in potentially launching a new trade round, something that I believe could be a possibility as soon as next year. With regard to other messages, the importance of the BRICS Plus format, this is, I think, a very important signal that suggests that BRICS as a bloc will continue to be in expansion mode and in extrovert mode, as it was in the course of the past several years when we've seen this very significant expansion that took a lot of the observers by surprise. And it was precisely the BRICS Plus format that triggered this very significant expansion in the ranks of BRICS. And going forward in the next several years, it's very unlikely that we will see any major changes with regard to the core. I think for the time being, the signals from BRICS core members suggest that core expansion is likely to be on hold. So what are going to be the modalities of BRICS Plus going forward and the expansion that is likely to continue? In my view, one of the possible tracks will then be, well, of course, there's the partnership belt, and there may be some expansion in the partnership belt as well. But I think the focus will be on new areas, new partnerships, potentially involving not just individual countries, but also organizations, regional integration blocks, something that has been to some degree a trend of the past several years. In particular, during this year's BRICS Summit, we've seen ASEAN as a regional integration arrangement from Southeast Asia participating in the BRICS Plus meetings. So going forward, I expect to see more regional integration blocks, more regional organizations taking part in the BRICS Plus meetings, and potentially, hopefully, forming a platform that brings together these regional integration groupings for the benefit of trade liberalization, because these are precisely the main agents of trade liberalization in the global south, the regional integration arrangements. More of trade policy in some of the BRICS countries and some of the BRICS members are delegated to the respective regional integration blocks. So I think it would make sense for the next stage of BRICS Plus evolution to target trade liberalization. Increasingly, we see that it's becoming very important, and to involve regional integration arrangements. And then the final point that was, I think, very important and that was made by China's leader was on globalization, the fact that globalization is an unstoppable trend of history, and that is something that signals, in my view, the positioning of BRICS as the leading force of globalization in the world economy, as developed economies are becoming weaker in terms of delivering these liberalization and globalization impulses globally. It is the BRICS bloc that is increasingly likely to be the leading force in launching these liberalization impulses, and I believe a revitalized globalization effort is likely to be led in the next several years increasingly by the BRICS bloc, by BRICS economies, provided, of course, there is this greater coordination of trade policies and the ability of the BRICS bloc to drive decisions, lead decisions, together with some of the international institutions such as the WTO. There were other very important statements delivered by other BRICS members, especially I think one of the most important ones was coming from India, that stressed the need to address the imbalances in trade amongst BRICS economies. In particular, India referred to some of the sizable deficits, trade deficits that it is experiencing with some of the BRICS members. I think a point that is very important and very pertinent, because if we do want a constructive dialogue and a constructive roadmap to be built by BRICS with respect to mutual trade liberalization, all of these problems, all of these tensions, they need to be openly discussed, which is exactly what was taking place during this discussion. And some of the proposals, I think, coming from India were very much on target, including the need to reduce non-tariff barriers. Some of those barriers may be particularly important for sectors such as pharmaceuticals, where India plays a significant role in global markets, but also for other geographies, for other sectors, whether this is Africa or whether this is agricultural products. I think looking into sectors such as agriculture is also very important, also with regard to addressing the needs of least developed economies, of some of the parts of the global south, such as Africa, that really need this liberalization in the agricultural sector. And then other segments such as e-commerce, such as trade and services, and environmental goods. If there is an effort on the part of Brazil and some of the other members of the BRICS bloc to address not just trade liberalization issues, but also environmental issues, perhaps this could be done in one package via looking at the possibilities of trade liberalization in the segment that has to do with environmental goods, environmental services. So, in a way, this could be a possibility for BRICS to address some of the commitments and some of the opportunities arising from Brazil's chairmanship, not just in BRICS, but also in COPE, in the environmental conference that it is chairing in the course of this year, and the summit that is going to take place in November of this year. So, a lot of opportunities, a lot of potential tracks that could be explored. Overall, I think the foundation has been laid by BRICS leaders for further discussions now to be conducted at expert levels and by scholars that study BRICS economies. I think they will need to really perform deep dives into how a roadmap of trade liberalization within BRICS could be developed, explore new modalities of trade liberalization that also involve not just individual countries, but regional blocs itself. And then I think if this work is done in the coming years, then this really strengthens the possibilities for BRICS to become a leading force in driving economic globalization, as stated by President Xi Jinping in the course of this summit. I think, again, the summit underscored the constructive element in how BRICS operates, an open, frank discussion that brought up not just some of the opportunities, some of the achievements, but also some of the problems that need to be addressed. And we see that the BRICS continue to work together towards basically meeting all of these challenges that are increasingly mounting in different areas, not just in trade, but certainly trade, I believe, will need to be increasingly the focus of BRICS policy coordination going forward. And we may see then more trade liberalization impulses coming from BRICS, and more benefits then to companies, to households from joint economic policy coordination. This will also have the benefit of BRICS further developing in the direction of becoming a full-fledged economic bloc that is focused on economic policy issues, and that is driven by the need for pragmatic economic cooperation. So, in my view, a very successful BRICS summit, and let's hope that it brings some very important results in terms of actual policy implementation in the coming years.